So just to reintroduce myself, Uriel Engle. I work at DPR Construction. I've been out there for 12 years and work on their innovation and robotics team. So once you dive into some of the robotics that we've had experience with, the robotics platform that I'll be talking about today is Dusty Robotics. One of the questions was, like what prompted us to try out and to adopt, some robotic layout. And for DPR, for those of you who are familiar with DPR, we're very open to letting people explore and try new things. And so actually going back closer to 2012, we actually had some folks internal to DPR actually putting together, a thought about let's have some robots do some layout. So they got some folks who are familiar with robotics, started throwing something together, and they called it the Laybot. Maybe not the best naming in the world, but that was back in 2012, and we tried on a few different projects. We're a construction company, not a robotics company. It didn't really perform how we envisioned it, right? Maybe it was us, maybe it was where technology was at back in 2012, right? We weren't getting the accuracy and whatnot. So anyways, fast forward through time, once you get, so we've had some of the experience developing the prototypes, but then once we heard about Dusty Robotics, we finally found somebody who was doing it right. So again, something that we wanted to see out in the field, and now somebody's doing it, and they're getting the accuracy numbers and productivity that we're looking for. So that definitely piqued our interest. So moving in, and is this for clicking through the slides, I'm assuming? So then as we started communicating with Dusty Robotics in DPR fashion, we're not ones to go and try to just buy something off the shelf and walk away and just use it. We really wanted to establish that partnership, something that's open and collaborative and giving some solid feedback back and forth. So from there, once we started getting out into, establishing that relationship, really it was the first steps were getting it onto projects, right? Every project has their own project teams who have different personalities of their own. Different projects have different challenges as far as just kind of what's the landscape of this is a wide open warehouse, tighter buildings, lots of obstacles and whatnot. So they all have their own dynamics. So really getting out and getting experience with a robot, we wanted to really find something that was ideally suited to the robot. When you're getting it out there for the first time, just after getting trained and getting it in your hands, it's like you want to get an easy win out there, right? So you want to get something that's tailored in, get it out there, get some miles on it, and some real-world experience. So with that, after getting it on a few different projects and getting those easy wins, just collecting the feedback and lessons learned, and from there, we can start moving it out and trying it on a wider variety of projects, right? Start proving out that it works in other scenarios and situations as well. So after getting it onto more projects, that's when we start getting it into putting together, training more folks, and then getting it into gauging the reception and how quick and easy it is to train our various craft workers, right? Because right now, West Coast, Bay Area, it's all union work out here, right? So there's specific folks who can take on the task of doing layout. So again, you're going from, let's say, snapping chalk lines and pulling tape measures to now, okay, here's essentially a video game controller that you're going to put in your hands, and you've got a tablet. So it's just like, how receptive are folks going to be to that, right? So after kind of gauging some of that, putting together the training materials, this is when we start taking the road on the show, or show on the road. Sorry about that. So started packing bags and actually started moving across our various offices across the U.S. and training our different craft workers out there, getting them access to the robot, getting them exposed to it. And really that's kind of where the expansion kind of rolled out, is after we got those successes, lessons learned, we pretty much had a little bit of a plan of here's how we can do it and roll it out successfully, and started replicating that across our offices. A couple of the items that really helped things to roll out and for it to really work well honestly, it was the open collaboration and communication with Dusty. Every single time we were out to a project or a site, we'd be putting together, whoever's operating or getting trained, we're putting together that little list of just thoughts, whether you're running into bugs and issues, or if it's just like, hey, you know what, if the interface was a little bit more like this, or if the robot did a little bit more of that, really being able to bounce things back and forth and report those things back to Dusty. They were really quick and prompt to be able to address those, either if there were issues or even be able to flesh out some of those ideas as well. So I think that really lent towards how successful it was as far as the rollout at DPR. And it was nice that it was a robot that worked as communicated. They didn't oversell and underdeliver. It did what it was intended to do. And we saw productivity that would be 3 to beyond 6 times productivity levels out there. So you could have even some of the early stages of this hospital patient tower that was going up. When it would take these 2 brothers laying out an entire patient floor, and it would take them an entire week to get everything laid out, showing up and training them how to use the robot, being able to get that entire floor done in a day and a half, as they're just learning. So they're not even hitting their peak of productivity. This is including the learning curve. That was something really impressive to see, and really nice to see them with their, eyes light up with like, hey, we're getting to learn something new, right? That's always has its own level of satisfaction to see. As far as any other things that really helped the rollout go well is really just the level of support from Dusty Robotics. Again, these are real job sites, real people. If you're planning to use whatever that new robot is, the moment there's a hiccup or any sort of delays, that's immediate money lost. Things are just ticking away. It's so really they were really key to, as far as our customer service and kind of tech team, to be able to respond to issues, solve things, log in remotely, get things taken care of, or if there's something mechanically broken, like they were flying us out with a robot if we were not local, if we were in another state. And so really just being able to keep that momentum going, because I don't know how many folks have experience with construction workers, and it's just if I'm doing a task and there's something stopping me up, I don't want to touch that tool again. I want to move on and get back to what I know works, right? So I think it was really key that they were there every step of the way and really responsive in that way. So with that, where do I see the use of robots at DPR? It really is quickly expanding, and we're always testing new tools. Really just getting out there and getting the exposure out to our different foremen and craft workers, even if they are not going to, at the end of the day, let's say, be the one operating the robot, still getting out. We did little road shows and things like that where we'd gather together local foremen and just give them some hands-on time so they at least understand what it takes if they have somebody else operating and what it entails. And I think just being able to expose a lot more folks to what it looks like to operate these robots helps them also kind of plan and schedule better to make sure it's really teed up for success. Even during some of those, let's say, roadshow, demonstrations, I've had times where it's you get some foremen together, you're showing them a few things, and in the back of the group, you might hear some little murmurings about oh, here's a robot coming to take our jobs. And it's just it's mostly joking, but at the same time, whether there's a tone of seriousness or maybe somebody's thinking it, right? It's just got to address those things, adjust the perception, and be hey, I heard that, that's funny, but at the same time, think about this. This isn't a robot here to take your job. This is another tool in your tool bags. So take this opportunity to learn how to use this new tool and really build your skill set and learn how all of these things really tie in together. And having that happen a few different times and kind of having that statement ready to go, it's you could see things kind of shift. Okay, suddenly they're a little bit more engaged. Okay, I do want to learn some new things. How can we be more critical to the job? I want to be indispensable out there, right? So it got a lot more engagement and it got a lot more interest from folks. At DPR, ultimately, whenever we're assessing new technology, especially when it comes to robotics and anything that's going to be interacting with a field, we really want to maintain that we are always people focused. It's always just how is this affecting our folks, how is this affecting our craft. So really number one is always going to be safety. And like we were talking about earlier, really taking people out of harm's way. If you're next to a leading edge, I'd rather send the robot out there and keep the operator back here to take care of those tasks. Reducing strains and sprains. I don't know how many of you have done any sort of layout before, but even just something as simple as kneeling on the ground. Just so you know, job sites don't have laid carpet or anything like that. It's usually hard concrete, and even then it's not well swept. You're going to get little rocks and maybe even like a screw in the knee. Just ask me how I know. Not fun stuff, right? So with all of that, hopefully we are, by reducing those strains and sprains, we can prolong people's careers. And also, this is another thing I bring up to the foreman, is besides just the little aches and pains that you have here and there, instead of having to kneel 1,000 times a day to make all those marks for that particular floor that you're building, think about the end of the day. Even though you didn't go home with an injury, when you're going home to the family and you're going to pick up either your kids or your grandkids, do you want to still be able to do that? Or do you want to be like, no, my back's really shot today, like I'll just sit on the chair and you can play in the living room in front of me kind of thing, right? So just thinking about that quality of life, not just at work, but at home as well. And then also there's the user experience, when it comes to the robotics, like how is this, our craft know how to do things the traditional way, but you're giving them something new. Is this actually, how do I say? Yeah, just the user experience. Is this something that makes sense and kind of follows like the way that a craft worker would think that this is how something needs to get done? So, that all has its weight to it. It's not always going to be, let's say, a Stanford college grad coming in to operate this new robot. This has to be in the hands of everyday craft workers as well. So just being able to get into that mindset of, okay, does this make sense? Does this, work for them? And on that, by adopting, these new robots and whatnot, when it comes to the worker shortage and even, let's say young kids who are looking at like which direction are they going in their life, by saying, hey, we're DPR and we've got all these cool robots over here and we're doing advanced stuff. We're still building buildings, but we're doing it in cool new ways. Potentially, who knows? That may attract some new talent, different arrays of talent that, there's more than just one path for you out there. So hopefully we're attracting some excitement as well. So with all of that, robotics also creates bridges as well, even for our craft. A lot of our folks at DPR in the office or the job trailer have actually come from the field. And again, this is just creating more paths from, let's say, becoming, a journeyman who maybe becomes a foreman, and then, they may just see their path to, well, the only next step is superintendent maybe, but this is opening up other avenues of, okay, get familiar with the robotics. Okay, from the robotics, I've seen some of our folks now get involved with more of the modeling and coordination, and then they start PMing, so it just opens up a lot more branches for folks, and I think it opens a lot of eyes. So with that, I appreciate it. Thank you.